United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy?
All right. Valerie, thank you again for allowing us to come to our meeting to learn more about CAP, provide safety to those that we search for or may be searching for. We ask that the government give us strengths. We ask that the government do the right decisions. And most of all, we just pray for all of our flyers that they may come back safely to actually help others within the CAP. You name
All right. So, welcome everybody. Couple of, are we on? Okay. If there's anybody watching that wants to submit a question, Roy, or correct me, let me know. Tater? All right, so we've got Garrett and Ryan here today. Why don't you start first and just stand up and tell us a little bit about yourself, how you heard about us.
Well, I am a student over at down the street at Cal Baptist University.
Awesome.
I'm part of their aviation flight program. I actually did all my certifications through ATP out of down in Oceanside, Palomar Airport, and I came here to finish up my degree. But
Awesome.
I had a friend that was previously part of CAP when she was younger in New Jersey. She's coming over, and then basically I was interested in like volunteering and ways I can kind of volunteer and do something with the pilot certs that I have while I'm in school, especially.
Perfect. Do you have a rating right now?
What's that?
What are your ratings right now?
I'm commercially rated with, or commercially certificated with instrument and multi and high performance.
Single engine land or?
Awesome, yeah.
multi?
Well, that fills all the squares for
Multi-
flying around here. So thanks for coming. We hope you like what you see. If you come 3 times, we'll ask you for money, okay? And you can join.
All right. I'm Garrett. I actually have known about the CAP for quite some time. I'm a aircraft maintenance over at March on the MQ-9s with the Guard.
Awesome.
Actually used to work with for Bob and Roger at the Aero Club, 2015, 2016, somewhere around
Yeah,
there.
we lost track.
Yeah, a while ago.
We get old.
I'm currently a captain flying Lears out of Gillespie and ATP rated. And
Awesome.
taught Jason to fly last year, and he's been trying to get me to come check it out, and finally found some time, so here I am.
Perfect. Well, congratulations on flying Lears. That's a dream of mine that I'll never see, but I guess I'll live vicariously through you. You come and I'll ask you a bunch of questions. So, awesome. I mean, you guys have great qualifications for CAP. The only thing else that you really need is a willingness to volunteer. And if you have that, you'll get a lot out of CAP. Like I tell everybody, it's what you put into it, you get out of it. So if you don't put much into it, you won't get much out of it. But I've been here 30 years and I've had a lot of rewarding experiences and hope you guys do the same. Tonight, first of all, we just came off a training flight. So the first training flight of the year. Missions are open. We've got the Cadet Ride mission is open. We've got proficiency open. We got maintenance open. And there was one other mission, I think. Well, there's a miscellaneous mission, which, by the way, you pay for the gas yourself, pass that on, okay? Inside joke, but somebody used a corporate credit card for that recently. A couple of administrative items before we dig into it, but I'll tell you what we're going to be talking about tonight is ELT search, okay? We're having a SARX on the 19th, is it the 19th and 20th of November, is the week before Thanksgiving? 2021. Ben knows, okay? We're going to be having a SARX here at Group 3, and it's going to be centered on ELT training and communications. So we actually added in a communications aircraft today into the plan so that we can have somebody that just had a Form 5 that's maybe not a mission pilot yet can fly in the SARX, okay? If you're Form 5 in the airplane, you'll be able to fly in the SARX as a hybrid, right? So we'll be going through the ELT training. Just to back up a little bit, oh, is this what we did today?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you can't get away with anything, can you?
Not anymore.
So if you blow this up here, Mike, you can see what we were doing. We were flying a photo mission over the dam here, simulated disaster relief damage assessment photo mission, whereby you fly true headings. First of all, you gotta figure your magnetic variance in the sector. It's 11.5 degrees here, so we're flying 168 for south, 78, 348, and 258. And trying to keep about a half-mile track spacing here with the 20-knot winds that were up there. It wasn't as easy as maybe it looks on paper. But you can see in the general, now we have a parachute jump zone down here, so we weren't doing this cloverleaf pattern everywhere, as you can see. But generally the idea is to come here, fly out, come here, fly out, and come around, and then maybe do a nadir look here. And we were actually doing some, this actually requires a lot of practice, as Dave knows, who's the AP on there, to keep there's three things that you really got to concentrate on. Obviously, you need your airspeed, your flying airspeed. You can't get too involved with everything else that you're not flying the airplane. You need to keep a good flying airspeed, and it needs to be around 90 knots on the ground, okay? You need to keep 1,000 feet AGL, and you need to keep your true headings. And you need to keep a half-mile track spacing. And you've got to be looking for traffic, and you've got to be doing engine management, you've got to be doing communication. So there's a lot to do on the part of the pilot. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do without practice and doing a lot. But as you can see here, what the AP is trying to do, and the reason why it needs to be north, south, east, west true is why, David, the AP photographers, or a particular reason why you want that?
That's part of the request so that you know the actual location. The lighting is another main reason. There's several factors.
Yeah. I honestly couldn't tell you why they really want it that way, other than it creates a standard, and it's also going to be in the metadata of the pictures, okay? And so they want a standardized pattern, if you will. And in the half-mile track spacing, they want the proper resolution, right? So it's the AP's job to be getting these photos. There can't be any part of an aircraft in there, It's got to be centered in the frame. There's a bunch of requirements, okay? So if anybody has any interest in becoming an AP, talk to Dave, and he can mentor you through and figuring out the steps to be, for that process. But as a mission pilot, they really have not had a lot of training with regards to that. In Q2, we will have a SARX here for aerial photography, and hopefully with something called Waldo, okay? So we'll learn more about that. But anyway, that's what we were doing tonight. Yes?
Is that image true north up right
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, you can see our headings are pretty good, even though there's a 19-knot wind there. So. All right, so can you bring up and I keep forgetting to say this. So, two things. So the airplane that we have now is going to be staying here for a while longer. Tim, how you doing? Lon, do you want to weigh in on that? Do you want to say anything about that, or do you want me to cover it?
The summary is that our old plane, 43 Charlie Papa, is coming up here and going to be put into the maintenance shop. In my opinion, it's using a lot of oil. So in my opinion, they're probably going to replace some cylinders, if not the whole engine. 43 is going to be down for, I'm speculating, a month, especially if they have to change the engine. In the meantime, the powers to be have authorized us to keep Zelda here until 437 comes out of the shop. I've even noted that if it comes out of the shop with major maintenance, we can't fly cadets for 10 hours after that. So everybody's aware that decision will be made on when we take and send Zelda out of here, once we know more about the plane.
So,
Sorry.
yeah. Oh, yeah, this is a picture of 437 on the factory floor there in, is it Kansas?
Kansas.
Okay.
Wichita.
For those of you that don't know that are new, Cat 437 is a Cessna T206H NAV3 G1000 all metal high wing, 6-place single engine fixed gear general utility aircraft for the Textron Lycoming TIO 540 AJ1A turbocharged air cooled right drive horizontally posed fuel injected 6-cylinder engine with 541.5 cubic inches of displacement, 310 brake horsepower to 27,000 feet, 179 knots. Any questions?
Yeah,
Idealistically,
good job.
Anyway, that's something that I'm gonna ask you guys that you're flying cadets to memorize, stuff like that, because just in part of the briefing I would do with the cadets, it's learn everything you can do about the airplane you're flying. Maybe someday it'll save your rear end, something Chuck Yeager always used to say. But anyway, the point is, this is one hell of an airplane, let me tell you. It is truly a service ceiling of 27,000 feet, it's turbocharged, it's GFC 700 autopilot, G1000 platform, which is literally 1,000 feet AGL. You take off, the next time you're touching the controls, if you want to, is 1,000 AGL, coming into a pattern to land, okay? So beautiful airplane. It's got a lot of capability for Civil Air Patrol in the way of this Waldo mission, because it can fly very precisely with its GFC 700 autopilot. The guys down in Group 8 have done a lot of training on that in the last year, and we hope to get some of that same training up here now that we have the aircraft back. And also, we're hoping that a number of people in the wing, because it's now going to be more centrally located for most of the wing members that flew it, that they can get that training. We can really put this aircraft to use. We're coming up on fire season, so hopefully we get this airplane up and operational. As Lon mentioned, it's burning a lot of oil, 1 quart per hour, which I'd say that's too much, right? There's another Turbo 206 up north that's having the same or similar problem. It seems to be something that's with these types of aircraft, these types of engines and what have you. Now, I could tell you that in the year 2019, 2020, over 137 different pilots flew this airplane from 19, 20 to 21. 137 different people flying a technically advanced, difficult to manage engine, okay? Turbine inlet temperature can never go below the green. You take the power out a little bit, it's gonna go out of there. If you're not managing the mixture, it can come out of the green, okay? So you're constantly making engine, if you're making engine adjustments, you're probably making a mixture adjustment with this airplane, okay? But especially if you're pulling the power out, you should be pulling that mixture out as well, okay? Keeping the turbine. So anyway, that's for another day, but I'm just simply saying that it's no one person's fault that it's gotten into this situation. I think it's probably inherent with this type of aircraft. If they do put a new engine in it, I think the TBO is 1,800 hours. It's a 1,400 hours now or something like that. So
15.
yeah, so it's close enough. They should be thinking about that anyway with all the problems. We'll be getting it back whenever it's up and ready. The good news is we're going to keep Cap 498 until that happens. All right, so there's a bunch of people in the pipeline right now, about 15 of you, that want to be checked out of that airplane. And so this should give us enough time to do that. So we've gone through a triage assessment of pilots over the last couple of weeks. We've gotten, I think, 5 pilots flown, okay? And at this point, I'm gonna leave it up to Trent to triage those pilots and take the person they think is the closest to a Form 5 and get that person done immediately and move him on or her on to Ryan for a Form 5, okay? So because we have only 1 check pilot, we got 5 people, I don't want to, I feel like everybody was assessed pretty good. He has a good feeling where everybody is at, who's gonna take longer, who can go right away, whatever. So that I'll be leaving that up to Trent to contact you guys, get your next rides in, and get you guys Form 5, okay? With this new airplane comes the G1000 platform. We are going to pick up tomorrow night a Redbird G1000 simulator, which is going to be here for the next probably at least 6 months, if not longer. We're going to set it up in the lobby, okay? And for those folks that are in the pilot training program, so there's 3 tiers we have, just so everybody understands what's going on with the pilot training, getting people into the group here to fly the airplane. We've got those pilots that have FAA ratings that are not FAA current and have not flown for a long time, okay? They are in the process of going to the local FBO and getting up to speed, okay? Once you're up to speed, you come to me, okay? Once you're FAA current. When you're FAA current, we're gonna put you in the program, we're gonna try to get you into at least a flight of a group of 3 people in an airplane, okay? To go out For 2 of those stories, you're sitting in the back watching the other person and how dumb they are. And then you get to be the dumb person, okay, the third leg, all right? So by doing that, you're in the airplane for 3 or 4 hours, you get a good view of what's going on in the cockpit. This is, 498 is a really weird airplane. It's got a lot of equipment you've never seen before. COM 3 is actually COM 2, just different stuff, negative transfer kind of stuff. So it's good to sit in the airplane. So those people are FA current, they get into the program, and then of course at the top of the list are the people that are FA current, that have had a Form 5 and a CAP airplane, that just simply need to get with a checked pilot and fly, okay? So, as it stands right now, I don't have a list in front of me, but I think that we only have about maybe 3 or 4 active pilots in the group right now that are Form 5 mission pilots, ready to go. All right, we need to have at least 10, okay, to be anywhere near operational. All right. So that Redbird simulator is going to help out a lot, a long way of saying short. You're going to be able to come in here and with a mentor, probably me, Mike can do it. He's flown a lot of G1000. Lon can probably do it. He's flown a ton of G1000. Any of our G1000 guys would be happy to sit down in a chair next to you and help you go through all the PFD, MFD, all the knobology. And of course, you don't have to do it on a computer screen with a mouse and a pointer. You can do it with turning knobs since we have the simulator.
We can send you the manuals as well, so you can
Yeah.
read through the manuals before you get
But
it.
just to get the basic VFR checkout in G1000 is not that much. You basically need to know some things like what are the 7 things on the essentials bus and some emergency items like that, and then just getting used to flying an airspeed tape and altitude tape. It's just different.
Need to make a flight plan, be able to take a
Yeah,
waypoint out and put one in.
yeah, create a user waypoint, yeah. And we'll probably, yeah, we'll just do that training probably individually, but I don't know if there's a really good way of doing it. There are some good videos, by the way, on CAP in the G1000 course. I might have sent out one link
I think you did, yeah.
that'll show you how to put in a user waypoint and stuff like that. It was like in G1000, there's about 5 different ways to do the same thing.
There's a lot of
So-
YouTube videos on G1000
Yeah,
too.
so, anyway, so that's what's coming down the pike, and we're gonna keep CAP 498 in the meantime, and let y'all who are in that pipeline continue with that training, and hopefully get Form 5 here pretty quick. We have that SARX coming up in November, so you'll be able to put these skills to use. Like I mentioned last week, I want everybody that wants to fly in an aircraft to be actually doing something toward that goal, okay? So every pilot that comes in that wants to fly, we need you to get through that mission scanner track, okay? For a couple of reasons, really. One, show the commitment that you're willing to do a little bit of work around here, okay? In the old days, a guy would come in, he's a pilot, Mike would have run over there and get him a cup of coffee. I'd call somebody, hey, can you bring some donuts for this guy? Can we get him a nice comfy chair here? Okay, well, what ends up happening in that regard is you get somebody that has a false hope. They're like, well, wow, this is great. I come here, these guys want me. And then 6 months into it, they're like, well, why aren't I flying? It's go, well, you haven't done anything. Have you done the level 1? Have you done the general emergency services? Don't forget, you're in the Air Force, and this is about as much red tape as you could possibly imagine, okay? But you only have to do that one time, pretty much. You gotta get through that over that hump one time. And then once you do, it's like Emma right now, she got through it very quickly, mission scanner. You didn't have to do observer, but she did, because she's a pilot. She didn't have to do observer, but she's gotten through all that stuff now. I was looking at her training, SQUIDRS, which is an acronym for, I don't know what it stands for, it's your training record. And really, the only thing that she has to do at this point is take a Form 5 check ride,
Right here.
okay? Then she's a
Is it anywhere?
transport pilot.
Sign
Now
in
she can
and,
start flying
sign the sheet.
hybrid on missions.
I'll get it for
She can
you.
fly on SARs. So, and then of course, I'm not even talking about mission pilot right now, but ultimately we want you to be mission pilot, you to be mission pilot, everybody in here to be mission pilot.
Sign right there.
That'll come down the line. But once you can actually get in here and you have 200 hours of PIC, you don't need to be a mission pilot, do something else that's very rewarding, which is cadet orientation flights, okay? We flew 60 hours of those this year, and that is ages 12 to 17, cadets in Civil Air Patrol, like your friend there, with their, most of them, their very first experience in flight. They get to actually fly the aircraft, and there's been many times where someone's gotten in the airplane, they didn't have any idea that this is really what they wanted to do, and they got out of the airplane, decided this is exactly what they wanted to do, and so you can be a part of that. And it's also free flying. I think I flew
A little over 100 hours.
110 hours in 5 months since April 1st, 110 hours. And if you multiply that out times, it's probably around 200 plus an hour to fly that airplane out there. It's
There's a brand
$20,000.
new cost sheet out too. You get
Yeah,
that.
it's like $20,000 of free flying, so. But it doesn't come free, okay? There is a cost. There's cost of paperwork that I'm gonna leave here in about 15 minutes and go do, okay? And the paperwork you do on the front end, but it is rewarding. All right, anybody have any questions about anything that I've gone over there with that? We're gonna talk about ELTs and what are they. Can you bring that slide up that I sent you today? Did you see the email I sent you that said I need that for tonight? You didn't? Okay, look at your email there. You can see. But in the aircraft, there is a Becker unit. It's a round shaped instrument over here to the right-hand side of the cockpit. The windscreen here. And he's gonna bring a picture of it. I think it's on slides. Okay, yeah, okay. So, this is our handy dandy equipment. What do you think this piece of equipment costs to put in a CP airplane?
There are 30 grand installed, I think.
$30,000, so pretty sophisticated piece of equipment, okay? To pick up both 406 ELT beacons and 121.5. Anybody know what the difference between a 406 and a 121.5 ELT beacon is?
Satellite based,
Okay, satellite base, which one's satellite based?
406.
Okay. It's satellite received, I would say. Is that a better, what's the best way to say it?
Well, yes, it goes to a satellite.
It
It's
goes to a
received by the
satellite.
It's
So-
interpreted by the satellite.
Yeah, it's interpreted by satellite and then rebroadcast, correct? To our Becker unit. Am I getting that right?
Right.
Okay.
Digital signal.
Digital signal. So in a 406 beacon, which is now required in all US and probably worldwide aircraft, I'm not sure about worldwide, but in the US, you're required to have, aren't you, or no?
If you're in certain airspace.
Certain airspaces, that's
You
right.
can fly,
So, yeah,
you can fly, it's gotta be C and B and above
okay.
is required. Other than that, I can go out here to the desert and fly without it.
Yeah. So anyway, most everybody has this now. By the way, is it a good idea to fly along and listen to guard? And what do I mean by guard? Anybody know what I mean by that frequency? 121.5? You know, I never really flew along and listened to guard very much until recently. I've been doing it every time I fly. Of course, airliners, they do it all the time, right? That's, most of our ELTs are picked up by a passing American jet or whatever. But you'd be amazed at what you hear on 121.5 as you're flying around.
Yeah.
They're calling aircraft and saying, hey, are you on frequency? Because, you know, you're like in, you're in restricted airspace. It's like the first warning that you'll get before his buddies come and intercept you is a call on guard. So it's probably not a bad idea to go ahead and listen to that for your own sense of safety also. But obviously we're flying along to see if you're hearing anything on there too, and you report it to AFR, TC. Anyway, so here's the Becker unit right here. Up in the top left-hand corner, you see it says squelch, okay? Here's the on-off button. Here's the volume button. Now, this is tied into the avionics master, so it should come on with the avionics master. Depending on what airplane you're flying in, it usually does, okay? Sometimes there's something called a mission master. If the mission master is tied to the CAP radio and the Becker unit, so your avionics master wouldn't turn it on, you'd have to turn that on. But anyway, if it's not on, you just press that button, it turns on. Now, within the first few seconds,
Sorry, I was looking for a mission master picture of it.
oh, that's all right.
Here it is right there.
Mission master, okay? Then it'd be over on a separate electrical bus over here on the right-hand side underneath the unit, on the right-hand side of your aircraft. But go ahead and go up. So we got the on-off button, volume, squelch, the page turner, okay? How many pages are on the Becker? Are there 4? There's something like 4. Don't hold me to it. I only ever use 1, and that's all I ever train people to use, so we'll go into that here. And then this is the frequency selector right here, okay? When you turn on the unit, it will give you a moment to select whether or not you want emergency or training on every Becker unit except for the one that's in our airplane, okay?
Well, that's, the 517 has that particular one, the 600 doesn't do that.
Our airplane doesn't have that mode. You have to actually go in and select the practice frequency, okay? But anyway, in every other airplane you'll find in the wing, you'll be given this, and it will default to emergency if you don't select it, okay? All right, so you got those 4 things there. You've got a clear, store, and REP button. Mike, you want to explain what those 3 items are?
Sorry, which ones?
These 3?
Those are soft keys on the top. Clear, store, and repeat, I think it is.
Okay, and how are they used?
To tell you the truth, I don't remember.
Okay,
Like I said, the 437 has a 600 in it. This is a 517, and I'm not sure which one that Zelda has on here. So, soft key generally, when you push it, it'll come up with a menu. I don't see the menu here, but it'll have a little small menu below it. I have a video that I'm going to play in just a minute that shows you how that works.
okay. The most important out of these 3 is the clear button, okay? Because what this does is it clears out the accumulation of signals that you're capturing. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But okay, so you've got, I think we've covered all of the buttons, okay? Now, let's talk about what this bar is here and this. This azimuth here is a relative bearing to the nose of the aircraft as to where the signal is coming from. So right now it says 337. That doesn't mean pilot turn to a heading of 337. It means it's 337 versus a 360 position here. So what is that? That would be
53?
23 degrees to the left, right? 360? Is my math right there? So you subtract 360 from 337, you mean you turn 23 degrees to the left, okay? To intercept that, that's what that means. If it was 180, it means turn around. If it's over here, 90, it's 90 degrees to the right. So it's subtraction here and just read the value here. Does that make sense? For the relative bearing. Now these balls are going to be telling you visually what this is telling you in the written format, okay? So what happens, you've got the signals bouncing all over the place, okay? This ELT, and we're talking for right now, we're just going to talk about 121.5, okay? For the 121.5 signal, you've got the signal comes up in a cone like this, and it's captured by this Becker unit, and there's reflection of this signal off of any hard surface, like a mountain or anything like that. So it's a line of sight signal, it can be blocked, and it can be reflected. So you get all of these different returns where it is. When it turns black, it basically creates an average of what it's gathering in and gives its best representation of where it thinks it is. When you press clear, it erases everything and starts over again. Okay, so if you feel like you've been flying, let's say you're flying too low, you want to start out high in these things. You're flying too low, you might be getting too many reflections. So you say, I'm going to climb up. You clear everything out, get to a higher altitude, okay, and start seeing what this data says. So here's the bouncing balls, gives you a relative bearing as to where the signal is coming from. This here is the squelch. That's where the squelch setting is right there, and you rotate it up or down. To be able to get any bouncing balls coming on the scope here, your squelch setting has got to be in the signal field. If it's not, you won't get any bouncing balls, okay? And this is an easy trap to fall into because you set the squelch differently for 406 beacon than you do a 121.5. Just continuing on with 121.5 for a second here. Down in here is where you would dial in 121.5, okay, so that you capture it. Whatever the frequency is, if you're looking on this screen, it's gonna be right here, okay? I don't know what 156 is that some kind of a Coast Guard?
Well, remember, this particular device is also used for LoJack and
Okay. So,
other,
if we were chasing what we knew to be a 121.5 signal, we turn it on, we go right to emergency, we wouldn't do anything else, and we would use our channel selector here, frequency selector, go to 121.5, and then start prosecuting it. So let's talk about what's involved in prosecuting ELT, okay? Say the ELT is right here, this is ground level. The signal comes up like this, in a cone-shaped pattern. That might be, I don't know, let's say 5 miles. Just making up a number. Say this is 2 miles. Okay? If you're high enough, if you're up here, if your plane is up here, you're gonna pick the signal up from further away. Make sense? Okay? So in the ELT, what we wanna do, and with this least amount of reflection. So tracking a 121.5 beacon, the first thing we're gonna do is fly high, okay? Generally speaking, they have an idea of where it is. They say it's in the Long Beach area, okay? Or it's in the John Wayne area or something like that. So we have a general idea and where to go. Around here, I might start out at, say, 10,000 feet, okay? And so, as you're flying along, you might be getting, if it's here in the cockpit, you'd be getting a ball that says it's right there ahead of you, right? As you fly over it, it's gonna be like passing a VOR. It's gonna go behind you, right? So, as you come over it, it's gonna start swinging around to the rear, okay? This is when you start flying at lower altitudes. Okay, when you have a general idea of where it's at, you start bringing it down in altitude. As you're doing, you're getting it closer and closer. The other thing that you're doing is you're blocking off sections of the world at the same time. So as I'm flying here, okay, and as I pass it, and it comes around behind me, I now know this is not in this area of the world, okay? It's somewhere in this area of the world, all right? Then I come around here, and as I fly by here, and it passes behind, now I know it's not in this area of the world, right? Same thing here, I'm coming down here and I pass it here, okay, then I know it's not in this area of the world. So you just start, as you fly lower, you start flying these different headings like that, and basically, by exclusion, figuring out where it's not, and that'll eventually tell you where it's at. There's a way to audibly listen to this signal. If you select ADF on the audio panel, you can hear the signal. It has a very high, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of noise on this listening through the Becker.
oh, you're talking about squelch?
Yeah, there's a lot of noise. So the better way that I've always done it is I go to COM 2, okay, your standby radio, and I'll dial in 121.5, and I listen on it there. Squelch is much better, and I can hear the signal. So one of the things that you're doing, along with looking at this ball in terms of what your relative bearing is to it, you're also listening. Is the signal getting stronger as I'm flying in this direction? Audibly, is it getting stronger? If it is, you know that you're on the right track, okay? So you're looking at this, you're using visual cues, you're listening to oral cues, and you're basically triangulating the signal in. That's on a 121.5. Who has questions on that?
I got a question.
Yeah.
406 transmit both on 406 and 121.5?
Yes, it does. Very good
Only
question.
the unit does.
The new stuff
The
does both?
unit does, but 406 transmits only on 406.
Right, the unit transmits on both. So, in the olden days, you had 121.5, and I'll say, what was the broadcast strength of a 121 signal?
About 10 watts.
10 watts. Okay, you had 10 watt signal. What is the broadcast strength on a new Becker, or one that broadcasts both on 406 and 121.5.
Well, it's like 1 watt now.
Okay, so what does that mean to everybody, just logically?
Less
From
power.
less distance.
Right. So what happens is you've got this Becker signal. We're going to transfer over to Becker signals right now.
I don't know, you're leaving.
I guess we
this.
can. Anybody have any questions in the general? This is super simple when you get into the airplane. You start doing it in a lab format, honestly. It gets a lot easier. But the buttonology of it is the thing that probably people have the most hard time with it. But the 406, so there's something called, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's not, is it auto? What is the exact name for the function that you put down here? It's not, you don't put in the frequency of one. I'm having a mind block.
I'm not sure.
It's like when you press a car stereo and you search for a signal and it just rotates around until it finds one.
Scan?
Scan, thank you. Scan function is how you fly this, okay? Scan function. Unless they've told you what the specific 406 beacon is.
Hmm.
Sometimes they have that. Sometimes they'll say it's 406 decimal, whatever, 35 or whatever it is. How many different Becker frequencies are there?
Well, it depends on which Becker you're using, but yeah.
Just in
one's-
general.
One is infinite, the other one has about 25.
Okay, so sometimes AFRCC at a Scott will tell you it's this signal, sometimes they don't tell you anything. Well, you don't know, you put on scan, okay, and you start flying around high like we did here, and then you pick up a signal, and then it'll lock in. Here's where you change the squelch is gonna be different, okay? The signal on a Becker, the signal on 121.5 is continuous until the battery dies, okay? A Becker is gonna broadcast that pulse once every, somewhere around
50 seconds.
45, 50 seconds, okay? It's gonna be up to your observer, the person in the right seat, to set this squelch just below where they saw the signal strength rise to, once they see that spike, okay? That way you're not picking up a lot of excess noise, okay, for these balls here, okay? And you're only gonna be picking up whenever it spikes up and over that squelch level. When it does, you're gonna be able to start tracking to that Becker signal, okay? As you get closer, you have 121.5 on in your headset, okay? As you get closer to it, you'll be able to start to pick up that 1 watt, 121.5 signal,
It's called a 121.5 locator
okay?
at that point.
That's gonna be literally within probably a couple of nautical miles within the crash site, right? It's gonna be a very close proximity. It's not gonna be out far. At that point in time, you're gonna change this over to 121.5. And I'm not sure if it automatically does it or you have to manually do it, but will it automatically change over to 121.5?
If it's on scan, it might, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it does. Anyway, you've got to change it over, but you're listening to it audibly, and then you do the final close proximity searching with that 121.5 signal. So that was actually a great question. Yes, it does both. One gets you pretty close, and the other one enables you to get right on in there. So, Mike, did you have a video you wanted to show?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, and what were you just listening to? What was?
That was just this is our test beacon that we use. It's a 121.775 frequency. It's a trainer frequency. We can't use 121.5 because it bothers everybody.
Before we put that video on, I just wanted to share something about why is it important that we're searching for ELTs all the time. I mean, a lot of you guys know, or you work around flight schools, kid has a hard landing, ELT goes off, nobody knows about it, next thing you know, Silver Patrol's knocking on your door, or somebody else is. So I'd say probably, I don't know, what, 99% of the time an ELT is activated, it's not an actual emergency, right? But the reason why it's so important for us to prosecute these things and turn them off is because if there's more than one going off at a time, they're almost impossible to DF. That's one good reason right there, okay? Just from our standpoint. Obviously, you want to prosecute these things to make sure that everybody's okay. But, I mean, how many times have you gone out in the middle of the night and you find out that it's like somebody bought something at the swap meet and the kids in the room going, turn it on, turn it on, turn it on. But anyway, all right, so here you go. See this video.
This is just a video some cat guy made, so.
And features of Becker 517. For more information, please consult the Becker on the mission master on the right-hand panel.
Sorry about that, guys.
Then turn the unit itself on. It will go through its startup and self-test process. If you don't see the option to choose between training and emergency, you'll know that you're using the RT600 version. Now let's take a tour of some of the basic features and settings of the Becker 517. Features of the Becker 517. For more information, please consult the Becker manual that's in the aircraft or available online. And of course, the
I
aircraft
downloaded
check.
that from today. It's just
Let's begin with some basics of operation. To turn the Becker on, first turn on the mission master on the right-hand panel. Then turn the unit itself on. It will go through its startup and self-test
You notice
process.
that's a 5.7.
If you don't see the option to choose between training and
The one we
emergency,
have at
you'll know that
4.7
you're
is
using the
different.
RT600 version.
They work different.
Now let's take a tour of some of the basic features and settings of the Becker 517. In the top right-hand corner is the page knob. This allows us to enter and select from different frequencies that are user stored. On other versions of the Becker, this has other purposes as well that are not available here. In the bottom right-hand corner is the frequency selector. We can choose from all the different frequencies that are available and pre-programmed into this Becker 517. If we want to listen to an ELT in flight, we can select the Becker as a source on the audio panel and then adjust the volume with the knob in the bottom left-hand corner. This knob in the top left-hand corner allows us to change the squelch. Now let's take a look at the display and the information presented. LS stands for loss of signal. If the ELT signal is lost, the Becker begins counting the minutes and seconds since the last time a clean signal was received. Frequency tells us what frequency we're currently listening on for ELTs. The prominent display in the middle tells us a relative bearing towards the signal source. This is a relative bearing based on the aircraft's heading and is not a magnetic heading. In this case, 34 degrees to the right would take us towards the source of the signal. The black dot is the direction towards that source of the signal, whereas the two semi-filled circles on either sides are the margin or the spread or the quality of the signal source. In this case, where we have a very close margin, we know that there's a very high probability that that's the direction to go. In areas of higher terrain or where the ELT may be located inside a building, we'll know that there's probably a wider margin for error. The volume tells us how strong the volume is and the squelch setting, whereas in the middle we see the noise to squelch ratio. If you'd like to adjust the brightness of the display, first touch the dim button in the top right, and then use the page knob to adjust the brightness to the desired setting. Now let's take a look at entering and selecting frequencies for searches. The page knob in the top right-hand corner will bring us into this screen. Here we can select from frequencies which have been stored by users, or enter one of our own. We can select a frequency using the top left-hand knob, or we can enter a frequency of our own choice by using megahertz on the bottom left-hand knob and kilohertz on the bottom right-hand knob. If we want to see all the frequencies that are available on this Becker 517, then from the main screen, we're going to use the bottom right-hand knob, which will bring us to this screen. Here we can choose between frequencies that have been stored by users, or those that have been pre-programmed in at the factory, like 1215, 156.8 for maritime, 243 for military ELTs, or the 406 frequency band for COSBAS SARSAT. Here we can select individual frequencies or COSBAS SARSAT scan mode, which will look across all the different 406 frequencies, as well as offering options to decode the data blocks from those beacons. This is particularly useful so you can ensure you're tracking the correct beacon. Now let's take a look at what happens as we actually track a signal transmission. In this scenario, we're actually orbiting in a left-hand turn the signal source. We can see that we have a very strong signal strength on the left-hand side. There is a slight delay, as you'll note, as we continue to turn for the updated bearings to that signal strength because the Becker is using an averaging system. Of course, you would be feeding your updated bearings to the mission pilot the whole time here. But you can see that we have very strong margins around the black dot, which tells us that we have a very high probability that that direction or that bearing would take us directly to the signal source. In this scenario, we're actually going to pass over the source of an ELT transmission. When we do so, we will actually want to mark that location using a physical landmark outside the aircraft so that we can come back and investigate further. When we pass over it, we'll actually see the bearing flip to behind the aircraft. And at this point, we want to yell mark and have the scanner or someone looking outside the aircraft provide a physical landmark so that we can come back for another pass. Now let's take a look at using the squelch in a loss of signal
Stop that for a
situation.
second.
We can see that we've lost the ELT for the last 17 seconds and no bearings.
So one thing that you could use is our reading procedure there also, which would be to define a user waypoint very quickly onto the MFD. And the reading procedure is just that, it's an acronym for range, enter, enter, direct, enter, enter on the MFD. So the range knob, the minute you fly over something and somebody says mark, you press that, you pressed range, enter, enter, direct, enter, enter. Now, what you've done is you've created a flight plan for the pilot with his bearing pointer, if he uses the GPS as a source for that, because you have a GPS flight plan. And it becomes basically a bearing pointer back to that whatever you just saw on the ground. Go ahead. That waypoint, yeah.
We could use the rep button in the top right to actually give us the last bearing to the source of the transmission. But in this case, we notice that the squelch is actually set above the signal to noise ratio. So we're going to adjust the squelch a little bit, and we'll notice that once again we're picking up the transmission, and we can see that the margin knobs are giving us a pretty strong source to the signal, so we know that there's a pretty good fix towards that ELT location. Hopefully, this video has helped you better understand using the Becker 517 direction finder. Good luck, and Semper Vigilance.
Ta-da.
I really wish you'd have done that before I started talking, because, like, what if you started saying everything opposite of what I just said? That would have been really interesting.
I apologize.
But anyway.
Need to expand on the 406.
Yeah, go ahead.
So not all aircraft are on 406.0 because the FAA only allows so many aircraft on the sub-frequency. So what you saw up there is 406.025, 0.33, then it goes to the next group of 0.45. And so many aircraft are allowed each one of those. So on my aircraft, on my ELT that I have, the 406, I'm a 406.025. But the one that the CAP may have, it may be 4.5, it may be 6.2, whatever the secondary frequency is, because there's only so many airplanes that can actually use that particular frequency. So the 406 is the main body, the subsections are assigned to all the different aircraft.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks, Bob.
When you get a mission from an IC, the IC will tell you what information he has. And if he has the 406 frequency that they're tracking, so he'll say it's a 406.025, which means that a 517 Becker, which is the one we just saw the video on.
Which is not the vector that we have. But
It's not the Becker we have in our aircraft, because the ones we have in our aircraft are unlimited 406 frequencies.
And about every 2 years, the people that have 406s will get an update as to certify the phone numbers to call, whether this frequency is still good for your airplane, whether you've changed the unit out itself to reconfirm that. So about every 2 years you get paperwork.
You have to
regards to
re-register
every airplane.
With NOAA, yeah.
Yeah, with no, so every airplane, if it's lost, that secondary frequency comes out so you know what side to really expand on and
Okay.
search for.
That's all I have for right now tonight. This is kind of an overview. I don't want to go too much into depth on this, but I want Mike to talk about what we do when we hand this up. Most times, we're flying ELT, we don't have ground teams. Most of the times I've done it, I don't have a ground team there, but oftentimes you do. And that's very handy, especially if, you know, that means you don't have to link. So what we do is we call a ground team that's working with us and say, hey, we think it's going to be at Hammond Airport. We're pretty sure that's where it's at. We hand it off to them, and then Mike, what would you do from there? I'm going to step out and finish the
Well,
airplane.
as a pilot, we ask the incident commander what he wants us to do.
Yeah.
Does he want us to land and wait for the ground team? Does he want us to prosecute it ourselves if there's no ground team available? those are the kind of things that the incident commander will do. So-
Right, but I'm just assuming you're gonna hand it off now, so tell these folks how you go about, an air crew's told you, you're going to an airfield, what do you do?
Am I a
What
ground
kind of
crew or am I
equipment?
an air crew right now?
You're a ground crew.
Ah,
You've passed it off,
Okay.
okay.
thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
He has to go do his paperwork still. So anyway, if we're a ground crew, we get a call from the incident commander. The incident commander says the air crew has found or has located the ELT signal in a certain latitude and longitude. When the IC gives us that information, then the ground crew will actually get in their vehicles, whether it's one, two, or several, and then they will go to that location as quickly as they can. They will, when they arrive there, sometimes they don't know where to go, and sometimes we'll be hovering above in the aircraft. One incident I did in Banning is I hovered in the aircraft for almost an hour until the ground crew got there. And then we actually told them which roads to go on up the hill to get to the simulated aircraft that we had, for a mission, training mission. And that actually was a very fun day. But that's what they do. And if there's no map there to that latitude and longitude, then you have to be there as an aircraft to help them up the hill or help them go on the correct roads. We're out in the middle of the desert or on top of the mountain and things like that. So we currently don't have a ground crew here. We've actually assembled a couple of times ground crews, but they have kind of dissipated and gone away. So if anybody's here interested in ground crew, let me know, and we'll try to reassemble another ground crew for that type of missions. So does anybody have any questions on the ground
We can
crews?
talk about accuracy on the 406.
What's that?
We can talk about accuracy on the 406.
The 406, I don't know, Terry he didn't go over that, but the 406, when you're flying, has an accuracy of about 1 mile. Accuracy. Now-
If it's attached to the GPS.
If it's attached to the GPS, they got an accuracy of about 10 feet. So, which is very, very accurate. Not all aircraft have the 406 attached to their GPS. Not all aircraft have a GPS and a 406. So that's why they put the 121.5 locator beacon in with the 406. And so when we get close, then we can transfer over to 121.5, and then we can track it in the old method. In the old method, we can actually get pretty close. I think Ben was with me one day, and I think I was within 50 feet of the actual ELT. So when we flew in the airplane, I said it's like right there, and we were within a 50-foot radius of it in a neighborhood. So we all, and we actually got to land and go prosecute it with them, the ground team. So that was kind of fun. So every once in a while, you get lucky like that. I've been on several missions where I've actually been the air crew, found the ELT in a industrial property somewhere. We couldn't find any ground team people available, so we jumped in our cars, we became the ground crew, and we drove to LA, and we prosecuted the ELT then, which, by the way, was in a demolition yard, and we had to go through a trash can to find it, but we found it and shut it off, so that's kind of fun. Yes, sir?
With everything working GPS and 406, you should be spot on from the satellite and have a genuine,
Again, it depends on which GPS they have.
Right. But I'm saying,
in their
the
aircraft.
newest stuff, the satellite should give you an address, pretty much, right?
No, it does not.
Most of them don't. Some of them do. But
Like I just told you, some GPSs will give you a radius of about 1 mile accuracy, right? Because they're not hooked up to any GPS.
Right.
So you have to have a 1 mile. That's why they have the 121.5 locator in them, so you can find them the rest of the way.
Got it.
So when you're flying along, the 406 frequency bursts every 50 seconds. So you're flying along at 90 knots. How far are you from one 50-second burst to the other 50-second burst?
A nautical mile?
How many?
One?
One, so you're about a mile. So you could fly right past it, right? And if you miss that burst, if you're talking to one of your buddies on the airplane and you miss that burst, you're 2 miles.
What does the burst look like on the Becker?
That's the ball.
It's actually kind of, let's see if I can bring that up again. Okay, so this is kind of hard to read, but this right here will burst. When it bursts, it'll go all the way to the top, and this whole thing will turn black, and then it'll come back down again. When you're tracking a 406, this burst will not be all the way up. It works differently, and sometimes they're on the right-hand side. There's another burst up here, depending on which one you have. So it'll burst all the way to the top, and it'll go away, right? So that's what it's called, a burst. What's that? Oh, so it takes a little bit of getting used to, but that's why we fly the training missions, right? So you can go out and you can actually put it to use and try to get some training about that. This is my own personal practice beacon. I put this out for when you guys want to go on a mission. I don't know, David, you've seen it. Emma, you've seen it on. So I turn it on here when you guys are flying around so you can track it back, so you can get some practice doing that.
That's 121.5 only.
This is 121.775. It's a
Right,
practice
right.
beacon frequency. Because if it was 121.5, if I turned it on, everybody'd freak out, right? They'd all think some airplane crashed. I have trouble with it now because it's full 10 watts, and when you turn it on, if you're within 1/8 of a mile, you can hear it on any frequency in an aircraft. So, kind of annoying. So I try not to turn it on only when we're doing practice. So. Anyway, any other questions? So the 406 does work a little bit differently, and if a 406 is hooked up to a GPS, it's very, very accurate. Our aircraft, the GPS is hooked up to the 406 unit in our aircrafts. Yes, sir.
How many ELT missions are we currently doing?
We don't have a lot of ELT missions lately. I remember 10 years ago, I used to go on one every 3 days, roughly. And that was just me. I mean, there was other guys going on one every 3 days. So we were having one almost every day. I've been actually to airports where there's been 3 ELTs going on at the same time. Where I've landed, I've prosecuted one, shut it off, and listened to the frequency, and it's still going. So that means there's another one on the airport somewhere that has it. And I go, you search around the airport, you find the second one, you turn it off, find the third one, you turn it off.
Do you know of any reason that there's a decline in those types of missions?
Yeah.
Yes, because we went to the 406 system.
Yeah.
And the 406 system, like you said, if it has a GPS connection, the interconnect, then the sheriff department goes and does it.
It's
We
the
don't-
sheriff.
We don't
So
do
the
it.
sheriffs are
They're the ones.
picking up the
They
load.
Yeah.
put in pressure. When they started buying the big stuff, it was costing them $5 million to show to the public that they were doing something for their money. And that's when we started to lose, I say we as Civil Air Patrol began to lose the search portion of the ELTs. It all went to the sheriff's department. And yet we have the equipment to locate it, they don't, but that's what took place. So it became a political issue with the state of California.
Yeah, it's kind of
Surprise,
strange,
surprise.
but the sheriff's department actually has first choice over going and prosecuting.
Oh
this.
yeah, we got chased out of a grid one time by the sheriff helicopter. You go look someplace else.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, where we went, we found the airplane.
Well, we actually do this. We actually do this kind of searching almost every day. I mean, even though it's not very seldom anymore, but we have a lot more experience than the sheriff department does. Like I said, if they have a 406 frequency, if they get from AFRCC, they'll get a latitude, longitude, and if it's hooked up to a GPS, it'll be within 10 feet. There's no searching to do.
Right.
You just fly over there and there they are, right? Now, the only one problem about that is if you got a mountaintop, if you got a mountaintop like this and the airplane falls through here and it breaks the airplane in half, and the front part goes here and the back part goes down here, and this is where the ELT is, and this is where the people are, what's the problem with that? It's, well, the first thing that we're gonna do, or whoever, the GPS is over there, we're gonna go find that. And we won't know where this is until we know that that airplane broke in half and the ELT that we're looking for is in a different place than the people. But they're not gonna usually be that far away, 2 or 3 miles maybe, depending on their altitude and speed, right? So, you gotta take that in consideration. Any other questions? Well, it's 8 o'clock now, so we can adjourn the meeting. If you have any questions, let me know. If you want any special training, let me know, and I'll take my time and I'll explain everything, you know, to the minute if you need to. If you need any other special training, call me and I'll arrange to
When we
to
get the
train you.
simulator,
Sure.
we'll make sure everybody knows, and when it's up and running, and
Yeah.
like Terry said, there's several of us that can help train on the G1000.
Tomorrow night, I'm going to drive up to Whiteman Airport and pick up the Redbird simulator, and I'll bring it back and probably hook it up the day after, or a couple of days after. I'll hook it up here and dial it in and get it adjusted. And then we can all do the G1000 training on that. However, I don't think it has a Becker. It's just G1000 training. So there is lots of good Becker / Wraith.
Rotheta,
Huh?
Rotheta.
Rotheta, yeah, that's it. That's a hard one to say. Rotheta makes that makes that device. Becker is just the brand name. So go onto YouTube and look for that and just watch them, and they're pretty neat. This is a 517. This is the old one. This is the one that came with our first G1000 aircraft, which was Cap 498, I think. No, not 498.
No, it's 69 something.
It was our first G1000. I forgot already.
Yeah, 695 or something
Yeah.
like that.
968 Charlie Papa.
Yeah, that's.
So it's 468. Okay, that's the one that came, the 517. It works a little bit different. All the dials and buttons, they work a little bit differently. Ultimately, it's the same machine, but they all work differently. And it's an